So we were talking about the third Beis Hamikdash. We were talking about the Beis Hamikdash in a broad and general sense. I'm going to review a few of the things from last time. Then what I'm going to do is to tell you what actually we could do to restore the Beis Hamikdash. And then I'm going to conclude by asking you to figure out a more personalized way to take the ideas of our shir. So the first thing, the history of the Beis Hamikdash. We spoke about how Hashem created Adam's body from the earth, but later was the place of the altar. It also says that he took all earth from the whole world. There's something universal there. What is it? What it is that when Hashem began the process of creating the world, he created great spiritual light. He centered it on what later would be the Beis Hamikdash. So there's a Beis Hamikdash above and a Beis Hamikdash below. We spoke about this last time. We said the Beis Hamikdash below draws down the light from above. So with that in mind, this is the first thing that we'll talk about now that we didn't speak about earlier. Dahlia, what do you think? Will the Beis Hamikdash come down from heaven, or will humans build it? What do you think in the light of what I just said?
From heaven. From Shemayim.
From heaven. Okay. Yeah. Now, could that happen? Absolutely yes. But the Rambam, the great halachic codifier, counted physically building the Beis Hamikdash as one of the 613 mitzvot. So how will it be? So now let's look at the mirror, below and above. We have to build below, but it only turns into a Beis Hamikdash if Hashem makes the Kedusha come down from above. So I want to make that clearer to you. I don't know if where you live they have these kits. In Yerushalayim, we have these kits for boys where they could build a Beis Hamikdash. So you have small kits, they're made out of cardboard. They have all of the main things in it. They have very sophisticated ones that are for teenagers. They take up the whole table. So let's say you bought your son one of these very sophisticated Build-A-Beis Hamikdash kits, takes up the whole living room table. It's made of metal and stone, and it's very beautiful. But now it's Friday. You know, and you're going to have 16 people for supper. It's time to what? Destroy the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. Now, it's no tragedy. Even though it looks exactly, it's a perfectly to scale version of the Beis Hamikdash. Why isn't it a tragedy? Put it into words. Why isn't it a tragedy? Certainly not a tragedy. Why? Because it might have been the physical picture of the Beis Hamikdash, but it's not the Beis Hamikdash. So even if they had a giant kit for men, I could picture men doing this, and you build somewhere in the Judean desert, and you build a full-scale Beis Hamikdash. Would it be a Beis Hamikdash? No. It's what? A building that resembles the Beis Hamikdash. For the Beis Hamikdash to be what it's meant to be, you need a physical building with the infusion of Hashem's presence in it. That has to come from above. If there's no presence of Hashem in it, it's not a Beis Hamikdash, no matter how accurate it is. Okay, nor is the Beis Hamikdash going to come fully built from heaven. Why? Because it's supposed to be a place of meeting between the earthly and the heavenly. So it says in Tehillim, and some of you are familiar with this, about Yerushalayim, Ir shechubra la yachdav. It's the city that made them come together. Who's the them? Who comes together? Hashem and us. It's not just he moves towards us, it's also that simultaneously we move towards him. It's a place of meeting. So the Beis Hamikdash was the first place of meeting. When Hashem created the world, the Evan Shatir is the first place where heaven met earth. Okay, now when a person dies, okay, what happens? So the heavenly and the earthly split, right? The body remains here and the soul goes above. So again, it's the end of the attachment. How many of you have been to Marat HaMachpelah, where the patriarchs and matriarchs are buried? Any of you? Okay. So you saw an act of joining just by being there. So if you went into the room and you saw, like, this one says Rachel Yaakov, that one says Rivka. No. Who made these rooms up? The Arabs. Okay, who made the big elaborate tombs? The Arabs. The means nothing. The way they're really buried, it says in the Gemara, is you have Avram and Sarah lying near each other, with Avram's head on Sarah. And then you have Yitzchak and Rivka. Again, Rivka near Sarah, Yitzchak near Avram, etc., till you get to the end. They weren't just sharing a spiritual idea together. We're trying to edit it enough that it can go into a book cover, that it could happen. Okay, so that's what the Beis Hamikdash is about. It's bonding physical and spiritual. So at the beginning of the class, I also told you last time, there's a machloket between Ramban and Rambam about how the Beis Hamikdash should be given over. Neo reports to okay, we had our little break. Now we're going to think. We had a moment of hitbodedut. Our hitbodedut was, how do you make something join? How do you do it? You want the physical Beis Hamikdash there, but let's say it would be built tomorrow. Let's say the Israeli government would blow up the mosque. Wouldn't that be interesting? Okay, and they would bring in engineers and designers, and you would have it. Would it be a Beis Hamikdash? No. So the question is, how do you make physical and spiritual actually join? What do you think?
You say a blessing on things, right? You elevate things by saying a bracha on them.
Okay, so one way is by saying a bracha. Okay, let's look at the actual commandment to build the Beis Hamikdash. It says in the Torah, when you come into the land, you should do three things: eradicate Amalek, build the Beis Hamikdash, and select a king. Which one of those would you say creates a bond between the higher and lower of the three? Which would you say is number one?
Elect a king.
Elect a king.
Why? Because, again, killing Amalek gets rid of that which is evil. Building the Beis Hamikdash draws down that which is good. Ideally, a king would be doing both. Okay, so the idea of unity, spiritual and physical, it's not easy to achieve. And in fact, we're told that Adam, whose body was made from the soil, but later was the Beis Hamikdash, he had children, Cain and Hevel. They had a quarrel. Does it say in the text what they were fighting about?
No. Only in the Gemara.
In the text, it doesn't tell you. Just leaves you to understand that there was jealousy there. Okay, so the Gemara, what were they fighting about? And there were several possibilities. Okay, possibility one, Adam had two sons. Now they obviously had sisters. What's the proof that they had sisters?
They had children.
We're here. Okay, got this? We're here. They had children. Obviously they were sisters. Okay, so they were fighting about the extra girl. Who's the extra girl? There were two of them and three girls. Who gets the extra girl? That's one possibility. The other possibility is they were fighting about the place of the Beis Hamikdash. And it's really the same fight. How so? Cain would say the physical world is mine. Hevel was saying the spiritual world is mine. But, and this is the crucial but, you can't divide things that way. Because the physical world doesn't give anybody pleasure unless they invest it with at least some meaning. Could you see where this is so? And the spiritual world can't be all there is because we live in bodies. So we have to have some way of bringing our souls with us as we go. So the answer is neither. But maybe it was both, not neither. So let's look at the two possibilities. They're fighting over the extra girl. Is marriage physical or spiritual?
Both.
Both. It's an absolute bonding. This is why when the when the very young girls get engaged from homes, you sometimes wonder like what's going to be, like they're so innocent. So they're going to be told straight out that bonding means also with your body, not just with your mind, not just with your heart, but with your body. The same way when you prepare for Shabbos, you don't just make food or read recipes, you eat it. You have to make it experiential. So the Beis Hamikdash was whose? Cain said, it's mine, it's physical. Right? Think of the Beis Hamikdash on the tabletop. Hevel said, no, it's spiritual. Who was right? Neither of them.
Yeah.
The Beis Hamikdash is both. So, next thing, now that we understand what it is, this place of perfect balance and mixture, okay, let's talk about people. Okay, so the first Beis Hamikdash, as we learned last time, was made in the merit of the Avot. Okay, the third one will be in the merit of Yaakov, but it'll also have another merit. What's the other merit? The first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because the people worshipped idols, did murder, were sexually abusive one to the other and exploitive. That's bad. We all agree that that's bad. That's no good. When you get up in the morning, don't kill people. Don't have affairs. No murder. Okay, no idol worship, okay? They just change your life. Okay, so they lost the Beis Hamikdash. They came back to build the second Beis Hamikdash. Was everything fixed? No. So how come Hashem let them have the second Beis Hamikdash? If it's not working, then it'll just either be the tabletop Beis Hamikdash or it'll be airy-fairy. If they're not holding, what's the point of letting them have the Beis Hamikdash? So I want to tell you the merit of the second Beis Hamikdash. The people were not perfect. Things had improved, but they were not perfect. They had assimilated to the Babylonians to a certain degree. The language spoken by ordinary people was no longer Hebrew. It happened in 70 years. Okay, so what should you do about this? What are your moves? So Cain and Hevel were both wrong. The basic rule, however, is the stronger you are spiritually, the further you could go into the world to bring it up. They needed to see that they could be at the bottom and move to the top. Skip many years, the Jews are in Egypt. You have the Yosef story, you have the fact that they were doing well. Okay, was Yosef somebody who would be interested in the physical or the spiritual part of the Beis Hamikdash? If you were Yosef, you know Yosef's life. Both. Both. I don't know if you're aware of this, the Gemara says that when Potiphar's wife was trying to seduce him, he felt desire. Now remember, he was 17 when he left his home. He had no hope of ever getting back, and nobody would know. He felt like he was going to die by holding on to his temptations. But he did. That's called serving Hashem with your soul. Small things are also worthy of that. If the reason that you don't eat raisins but do eat craisins is because raisins have a better hechsher, that's seasonal and it's perfect, but it's not as yet the Beis Hamikdash. It could be, but not as yet. So if the Beis Hamikdash was built without having the balance, what did Hashem look at and see? He said, at least the people are unified. So they're not perfect, but they're together. That means if they're together, they see the godliness in each other. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to do something that no other teacher tells you to do. You ready? Think of someone who you really don't like. They always tell you to think of someone who you want to get past your grudges and bearing it. Not today. Today, just think of somebody who did right. Okay. Rosalind, you have someone? Silence. Alex, you have someone? Okay. So now you have the second Beis Hamikdash built in the merit of Klal Yisrael. What would destroy it? What would destroy the second Beis Hamikdash?
Sinas Chinam.
Exactly. Sinas Chinam means when we lose the unity of Klal Yisrael. We lose this. So that's the beginning part of this year that I told you. It's about the Beis Hamikdash itself. Now I want to talk to you about how you could rebuild it. Remember, there's the heavenly one and the earthly one. The heavenly one is built how? Two means. The good deeds we do, and the way people culminatively, in the course of many years of overcoming and connecting, they're the real deal tzaddikim. Are there real deal tzaddikim in the world today? Okay,
Yeah.
your expression.
Why not?
They're just on a different madriga to possibly rub on him from previous generations. You read as Hadoras, so.
But you should see what you look like.
Of course they are.
So what is it? So there's a rule. Every generation gets what the generation needs. Okay, we don't have a Rambam. We don't have a Baal Shem Tov. What would we do if we had? We would probably lock them in a home, in some sort of facility. And if not, we would consider ourselves to have bad lives. Okay, so now you can go back to the idea of the name. So the name doesn't mean much to me, and I'll tell you why. It means nothing to me. With TD, the name is for the grandchildren themselves, it's for your family. We could tell them all of the stories. But unless the stories are told by somebody who likes them and likes the characters in the story is dead. Okay, so I'm going to give you, again, two examples of stories, this time good stories to tell. Okay, first one. There's a very popular Hebrew handout that you get in shul on Friday night from Chabad. It's called Sichat HaShavua. Did any of you ever see it? No, okay. So it's 5'2", it's small. They looked very cute walking down the street together, okay, whatever. Okay, but then life begins as usual. Thereafter, the Shefa Brachas has to travel to work. She has to travel to work. The mother lives nearby. The kids could play babushka with her. Okay, so the setup is there. But sinas china means when you don't like someone, even though they haven't transgressed the halacha. Is there anybody who you don't like who isn't sinful? You just don't like them. There are people like this in your life? If not, move to Brooklyn. Okay, so I just said that. So what if you don't like someone? Why is it so bad? When the Torah was given, everyone said Na'aseh v'nishma. Is there even one Jew in the world ever who could possibly keep all of the mitzvot, all 613 mitzvahs? No. If you're a man, you're not a woman. If you're a Kohen, you're not a Yisrael. But there's more than that. If you're a brilliant Torah scholar, odds are you're not a farmer. Okay? If you're a Gabbai Tzedakah, odds are you're not simultaneously the poor person who's taking tzedakah. So it's not just a matter of halachic responsibility. It's a matter of personal capacity. The Meshech Chochmah says this. The wholeness of Am Yisrael takes place when people are being themselves. So accepting people as themselves was the merit of Bayit Sheni. And it fell apart. Okay, the whole thing fell apart. What's the result? The result is we could talk about the Beis Hamikdash, which we do. We could talk about the Korbanos, which we do, and we will speak about more in a moment. But it's like talking about marriage without ever seeing a bride or a groom. It's all talk. It's like talking about recipes for Shabbos food without ever eating it. So we're living in a world of illusion. And this is what Ramban says, not me, Ramban. He says that in our present state, it's like rehearsing for the play. It's not the play. Everything is two-dimensional. What's two-dimensional? Our unity with each other and our unity with God. The mirror, here's us, here's God, and here's us, here's other people. That's what's missing. Again, us and God, and us and other people. It's missing. Okay, so what exactly is missing? I'm going to tell you more about the Beis Hamikdash and mourning for it, and then we'll get practical. There's machloket between Rambam and Ramban about what the most important part of the Beis Hamikdash was. Rambam, who some of you have heard of Maimonides, was a philosopher, was a brilliant halachist. He's best known for his famous Mishnah Torah, 14 volumes, the whole Torah. Okay, Ramban was a Mefaresh. He was a mystic scholar as well. Here's their argument. One of them said the most important part of the Beis Hamikdash is the Aron that had the Torah in it. And the other one said, no, it's the altar where people offered sacrifices. Who do you think said what? Do you think Rambam, the rationalist, said the Aron or the Mizbeach? What do you think he said? But Shefa, what do you think Rambam, the great Chacham and rationalist, would say? The Aron or the Mizbeach? You have to unmute yourself.
Can you say the question again?
Rambam, the great rational thinker, what would he say is more important? The Torah, the Aron, or the Mizbeach where they did the sacrifices? What would he say?
Torah.
You think he would say Torah? Okay, good. And Joanne, Ramban, the great Kabbalist, would he say it's the Torah or the Mizbeach? What would he say?
I'm hoping the Torah.
So Rambam says the Mizbeach.
Yeah.
And Ramban says the Aron. Why? Why would they say this? And I want to tell you how strongly Rambam says this. Let's say tomorrow, again, I'm bringing a fantasy I told you already used once today. The Israelis blew up the mosque on Har HaBayit. And wow, there's this great fire from above. Kedusha is coming down. It's like an amazing thing. Okay. What do we need korbanos for? Rambam says the one thing you have to know before you could call something the Beis Hamikdash practically, you must know where the Mizbeach is, where it should be placed, and how to make it. What are korbanos about? Imagine you have a non-religious friend, let's call her Elisa, and she says to you, what do you miss the most? I know that you religious people, don't get married at this time of year, then you have a big fast. What are you really mourning? And you say, animal offerings. Okay, what would happen next? So what's really happening there? If you'll understand this could change your life. Okay, what's the difference between you and an animal? I want to share with you something that actually happened to someone on the plane. The rabbi was sitting next to a man on the plane. He ordered kosher food, of course. So the flight attendant brings him kosher food. Then the other man ordered vegan, okay, and the flight attendant brings him vegan. So Mr. Vegan turns to the rabbi and says, I don't eat other animals.
Isn't it that we have a Bechira and they
This
don't?
really happens. What?
Isn't
I
it?
don't eat other animals. Okay, and the rabbi said,
Yeah.
what? And the
No.
rabbi said, but they eat each other. Isn't that true? Other animals eat other animals. But let the guy sort of, why am I telling you this? There are people who seriously think that we are just other animals, but we're not. What makes us different? Tell me 3 differences between you and an intelligent gorilla.
We have a Bechira.
We have what?
Speech.
We have intelligible speech on a much more
We can
sophisticated
talk.
level.
Thought.
Hmm?
Thought.
We have Bechira.
We have the ability to make moral choices. Animals act on instinct. We have the ability to speak, which bonds our thoughts with our mouths, body and soul, and many other things. But your soul, which is where Bechira comes from, actually has 2 aspects, the animal soul and the spiritual soul. Did I say the Yetzer Hara? No, I said the animal soul. What's the animal soul? The animal soul is the instinctive self. Instincts are not evil. There's maternal instinct, survival instinct, but they're instincts. They don't travel the route of Bechira. Then you have the spiritual soul. The spiritual soul yearns to be like Hashem. Now remember what I told you about the mirror, Hashem and us? I'm going to tell you something you will not believe. When you ask which aspect of the self is more important, the animal soul or the spiritual soul, the answer is the animal soul is more important. The animal soul is more important. Why? Because the spiritual soul existed before it entered a body. It's perfect. The spiritual soul doesn't need any tikkunim, doesn't need to make choices. The animal soul is here to elevate itself and elevate the world. And it needs the spiritual soul to influence it to do so. But the animal soul is why God put your soul in a body. So again, we have the mirror, Hashem and us. Nothing is more important than elevating the animal soul. The mitzvot of the Torah tell you how to elevate the animal soul. Studying Torah tells you Hashem's will of how you should conduct yourself in the framework of somebody who has an animal soul. The function of the sacrificial offerings were to elevate the animal soul. The word korban is related to the word karov, which means near. You only draw something near if it's far. If something's already close, you don't make it come near. So the first step in a korban is the selection of the animal you want to uplift. There were 6 different animals that were used. Okay, so I'm just going to give you one example, a sheep. Everybody has a sheep self. The sheep self is the follower. Do we blindly follow sometimes? Do we or not? You're talking to somebody
Yeah.
who wore 6-inch heels
Yes,
as a
we do.
teenager, yeah?
Yes.
Of course we
Yes.
do. Of course we do. Some more than others. Is this necessarily evil? Remember, I said the animal soul isn't the Yetzer Hara. Is following necessarily evil?
It's instinct.
It's certainly instinct. I asked if the instinct is necessarily evil.
Yeah.
It depends on who you follow.
Depends on the who and the why.
So I wanted to, one of the praises of the Jewish people, Lech tech achavai bamidbar, be'eretz lo zarua. You followed me. Hashem says this. You followed me into the desert, a land that was never plowed. Okay, you followed. Okay, everything depends on the choice. Who and what will you follow? So remember the mirror. Here's Hashem, here's us. You want to elevate your capacity to be one with Hashem by choosing to follow Him. Okay, so why do we have to actually sacrifice the animal? Why not just talk about the importance of following him? For the same reason on Shabbos, we don't talk about the importance of eating food. We're in the world of reality that's physical. Following has a physical component. So here are the steps that have to take place in the korban. First is the selection of the animal. That's clear. The next is the person who's offering the animal would lean his hands on the animal so he could feel his life force. Women, by the way, were exempt from that. They only did that if they wanted to. Okay, next. The animal is killed the way you kill an animal that you're going to eat. And it doesn't even have to be killed by a Kohen. It could be killed by an ordinary shochet. And here's the most important part. The blood is received by Kohanim in special holy vessels. It says, Hadam hu hanefesh. The dam is the animal force. It is its life. The animal's blood is holy if it's in a holy vessel. Your animal's self is holy if you put it in the right vessel. Your desire to follow is good if you follow the right one. There were, again, other animals that were used. Okay, you have a bull. Would you like to be alone in a field with a bull? No. The bull is aggressive. Okay, but that strength and aggressive energy could be put to the plow, can't it? Okay, so aggressive energy is good if what? If it's productive, if it's leading to nurture. You want people with aggressive energy around. Give me an example of where aggressive energy would be useful and good and holy.
If a car was rolling over a child, maybe.
A shochet.
If
Stopping him. Yeah.
protective energy.
Okay, this actually happened. I'll give you a picture of a scenario that actually happened. It happened around 3 years ago. Right now in Israel, there's a religious branch of the army as well. It's called the Nachal Haredi. By the nature of things, certainly at the beginning, now less so, they weren't getting the best and brightest because the best and brightest of the Haredi boys were in yeshiva. So the beginning boys weren't making it in yeshiva, but who were good boys, good solid boys. Okay, so at first their officers were not even religious because they didn't develop officers yet. So 3 boys are on patrol in the Jordan Valley. Have you been to the Jordan Valley? You have. You may not know you have, but if you went from Yerushalayim to the north, you've been through the Jordan Valley. Okay, it's hot and boring, but that's where it is. It's not a hot spot in Israel in a military sense. It's not the Gaza border. So you can have soldiers who aren't the best and brightest patrol there. So you have 3 boys. How old do you think we're talking about?
19.
19, 18.
18.
With now, an 18-year-old boy has the maturity of a 14-year-old girl, right? There's the picture. So they're walking together, and they're passing a kibbutz, and they see that the security fence had been altered. Okay, it was not pushed down by an animal would push it, it would be crushed. It was cut with a scissor. What would they do? What should they do now? Be them, what should they do?
Call your superior.
Radio.
Superior, but you realize as
Put out an alarm.
as you're calling your superior, whoever got in with the scissors, remember, this is a human. God knows what they're doing. So should you just stand there and listen to the phone ring? No, you have to get in there. So until the superior answers, what should you do? You
Put out an alarm.
You follow. Are there footprints? Does it look okay? They followed. This all took seconds. I mean, like it's longer to tell than it took in life. Okay, they followed the person who entered till they got to the kindergarten. What should they do now? They see a man standing in front of the kindergarten. This is the man who cut the fence. What should they do now? The superior officer did not yet answer. But remember, it's taking longer for me to tell it than it actually happened. This is seconds. What should they do?
Kill him.
Kill him.
Shoot.
They should take him out. And they did. Okay, clear? Do you need aggressive energy for this? Yes. Okay, what would have been a wrong move at this point?
To hesitate.
Hesitancy. Even sitting down and saying Tehillim would have been the wrong move. Why? Because the Torah tells you what to do. It says someone's coming to kill you, you get up and kill them. So why am I telling you this story? There's a place for it, but it has to be determined by what the Torah actually tells you to do. There's a place for all the animal instincts. There's a place for desire, and there's a place for bossiness, and there's a place for everything. So the korbanos had the effect of changing the collective animal soul of the Jewish people. We can't do this now. We could recite the korbanos, and that has some value, but we can't do what was done in the Beis Hamikdash. So in the Beis Hamikdash, according to the Rambam, who says that the main thing is the Mizbeach, you go in there in the morning, and they're offering korbanos. They do the tamid in the morning, it atones for the sins that were done at night, right? And it uses a sheep, and it uses flour, and it uses oil. It uses all the components that we need for our lives. We elevate ourselves, and you leave different. You leave a different person. So if you could do this, if you can go someplace and leave a different person, would you go there? We'd be there. So the mourning for the Beis Hamikdash has to do with mourning for lost opportunity. We could learn about it, and we don't feel that much for it because it's far from our reality. But it would be nice to be able to go somewhere and have such a strong feeling of Hashem's presence that you realize the animal self in you could be elevated. But it's not just in you. What about the person standing next to you? What about the person standing in front of you? What about the person standing in back of you? What about them? Is that what they were experiencing also? Yes. So I'm going to give you a digression. Okay, would you say it's accurate to say that by and large we like each other a lot nowadays? We're just like so affectionate and unified, friendly and warm. Would you say that that's accurate?
All of us on this group, yes.
In this group, absolutely yes.
If you got rose-tinted glasses, yes.
Yes.
Or if you're on the drugs, Rebetzen, the drugs help.
Oh, yeah.
It's the bottle of gin that you drank last night, Doctor.
Hick.
So I want to tell you something. What separates us is that we don't see the other person's animal soul or their spiritual soul. We see their bodies and we see their histories. That's what separates us. If you felt other people's struggles, and if you felt their longing to be more, you would feel one with them. So what separates you is age. People are much older than you or much younger than you. You feel that they're not for me. Cultural background. No, I'm sure everybody here went to Oxford. Okay. What are some other things that separate us?
Masks. Everyone's gone mad about masks. There's the world who want to wear masks and they judge everyone for not wearing masks, and the ones who don't wear masks and they think people, you can't impose on my civil liberties for wearing a mask. Masks are very divisive.
I want to think way before Corona, people were wearing masks. People begin wearing masks when they're in kindergarten. People live here. People really knew me. They wouldn't like.
You go somewhere where you're not. Yes, it's true because the masks have been hugging.
We're phony. We put on masks because we want people to not see who we really are. Okay, I'm not talking about the anti-corona masks. We're separated by all of the things that are external. In the Beis Hamikdash, these things fell away. They fell away. You saw the other person as a person like yourself, with your struggles, with your defeats, with your victories. And people ended up leaving as though they had one heart. Now, the phrase one heart is not my phrase. The phrase one heart is the Torah's phrase. When we receive the Torah, we were like a person with one heart. Everyone has one heart. No, imagine having 4 hearts. That would be a terrible defect. Okay, so I want you to focus on something, the human body. Is it accurate to say the heart is more important than the finger? Is that accurate or not? Is the heart more important than the finger or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Doctor?
Yes.
Miriam saying yes. Who's the doctor?
Well, it's the brain, Joanne. My husband's a neurologist. It's the brain that's the most important.
Yeah, but you're the GP.
We'll all agree whether it's the brain or the heart, it's more important than the finger? Yes? But is it accurate to say that the finger is more or less part of the body than the brain or the heart? No. It's not as important, but it is part of the body. You can't survive without a brain or a heart. It's more necessary. You could survive without a finger, but it's part of the body. So the more you find yourself defined as the body, the more acceptant you are of people who are parts of the body. So now we have 2 things that are happening if there was a Beis Hamikdash. One is the mirror through the Mizbeach. The other is what? The unity with other people that comes as a result of that. And now we're going to look at Ramban's view. Ramban said that the most important thing was the Aron. What's the root of the word Aron? Or light.
Light.
Okay, Aron is the place of light. So today we use it to mean any closet. Any closet in modern Hebrew is called an Aron, but in classical Hebrew it was the Aron that contained the Torah. So what does the Torah do for you? What does the Torah do for you? Then don't we have Torah even without a Beis Hamikdash?
Teaches you how to live.
It's your GPS, it teaches you how to live. So what Ramban would say is you could have all of the longing that you want to elevate yourself, but if you don't know what to do, it's worth nothing. And I want to illustrate this to you by talking about what's happening in the United States right now. So it's getting less, but it's still there. The Black Lives Matter movement. Okay. Do you agree that Black Lives Matter? Yes, it does. Anybody here think Black?
I did until they started on us. So that's just an excuse. It's a funnel for someone else's funding to create another message over us, against us.
Okay, but do Black Lives Matter?
It depends what they do with their life. It depends what they do with their life.
So you think that anyone's life matters depending on what they do with it?
Yes.
Everybody's life matters. Everybody.
Right. So everybody's life matters. Well, how much would depend on what they do with it. That makes sense to you?
Yes, definitely.
So what went wrong with this movement? I want to tell you what went wrong. The people who want people to take Black lives and all lives seriously, are they bad people or good people? They're good people. But they don't have a GPS. They don't know how to be a good person. So it's for the Blacks have suffered 400 years worth of enslavement, which affects your mentality, it affects your family life, it affects your expectations from yourself, it affects everything. This is true. However, the way to become more isn't through taking a brick and throwing it through somebody's store window and stealing merchandise. That's not what's going to change it. Why would they think that that would change it? Where are they coming from? Why did they think that will change it?
I think it was a crowd mentality.
Yeah, it was collective thought. It was herd mentality.
It certainly was, but why are they going in that direction? So
it's about my right. You owe me.
Right, you owe me. I want you to think of contemporary literature. When you compare contemporary literature to, let's say, the literature of 100 years ago, the literature of 100 years ago is heroic. Here's, the beginning of the book, you introduce the characters, then you have the challenges that they face, and finally you have the triumph or the defeat. Did you see where this is so? Here, and arguably this began with Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, where he got into the headset of someone who did a terrible crime. Who's to blame? And once you discover who's to blame, you're justified to protect the dignity of your life through anger at them. It's a completely different narrative. The narrative is, you have suffered, find the cause of your suffering, and assuage your suffering through anger. And the people who buy into this are not necessarily evil people. They're people who don't have a GPS morally. They don't have a Torah. Good intentions alone will not do it. The desire to live meaningfully won't necessarily tell you that you will live meaningfully. So Rambam will say it's the Mizbeach. Yes, the goal is to elevate the animal self. Ramban would have answered, but if you don't know how to do it, what good is the goodwill? Okay, so what does that tell you? What that tells you, when you finish Shemona Esrei, you step back 3 steps, right? Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'imo amen, and then what do you do next? What happens next?
You say Yehi Ratzon milfanecha, isn't it, after?
You say Yehi Ratzon milfanecha, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokeinu, Shebane Beit HaMikdash, that's part 1. What's part 2?
ותזכר.
Ten Chalkeinu b'Toratecha. Build the Beis HaMikdash. We want to come close to you. But give me a portion of the Torah, because without that, I'm finished. I'm done. We need both. The Beis HaMikdash helps you uplift yourself. The movement is from here up. The Torah, the movement is from there down. You need a place of meeting, a place of chibur. This is what we don't have nowadays. If we did, we would have been out of Golus a long time ago. The Gemara says plainly, Mashiach is here in every generation. Everything depends on the Makabel, to use Maharal's word. When we're ready for Mashiach, he's here. Readiness means that we have to want this. Why? Because the way Hashem operates his world is he makes all of the decisions concerning everything relevant in your life that's physical. You didn't choose how tall to be. You didn't choose what family to be born to. You didn't choose how many brain cells are there up here. You didn't choose the 1,000 light receptors that are in both of your eyes. You didn't choose a lot of things, but you do choose what to do with them. So when you say Yehi Ratzon, She'ebane Beis HaMikdash, you're talking about what? The desire and ability to meet. Okay, the other word is what? Ken knew what's right after this. You have the husband saying the same, sort of, okay? So a man is davening, he's davening the same things his wife is doing. Okay, he'll also step back and say Yehi Ratzon, but the movement is different. The way women move instinctively is from the bottom up. The way men move instinctively is from the top down. What does that mean? Historically, women's longing for Eretz Yisrael has been greater than that of men. We want to do it. We want to take the animal self in ourselves and our children and our families and elevate it. We want to do it. We want to put our hands on it and say, yes, this will be dedicated. Not repressing, not denying, using. And for that we need a GPS. Men want to provide you with a GPS. If you don't believe this, try going on a road trip with a man. Did you ever do this? Do they ever admit to being lost? You could be in Antarctica. You can say, isn't it a little cold? And they'll say, we're almost there. There's a little bit of man in every woman, a little bit of woman in every man. It's not 100-0. There's room for both. But there has to be a mirror. Something in you or in your family has to bring Torah down to you. Someone in your family has to bring it up. So concretely in our lives, what would you say to somebody who says, gosh, I need a job. I can't get by, like I'm not making it. And you say, have you looked in the want ads? I say, nah, nobody ever gets a job from the ads, from want ads. Have you networked? Have you called your friends who work in your field? They say, nah, if my friends had a job for me, they'd call me. Did you go to an agency? Nah, they're just a bunch of thieves. What does that tell you? If he's not asking his friends, reading the paper, or going to an agency, what does that tell you?
He's not serious or not passionate about finding a job.
He doesn't really want a job.
Doesn't really want to
Not
job.
active.
Okay, if a person says all the right words, Sheba the Beis Hamikdash, Et Tzemach David Avdecha, of Yerushalayim Ircha, but what? They don't mean it. Even though I said that the words of Shemona Esrei are important enough to be said in any language, if they don't mean it, it's not good for them. Okay, so what should you do with all of this information?
Put it into practice.
Okay.
Put it into
the last
practice.
thing I want to leave you with, I gave you a minute to think about this, half a minute. I want you to think, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do in your own life to live the Mizbeach? You know your animal soul. You know what's available to you. I'm leaving you with a thought, and I gave you half a minute to think about it. What are you going to do with it? And if you can answer that question, this class had value. If you can't answer this question, the class really didn't have value. What are you going to do with it? Okay, do you have any questions?
Anybody? Join Global. Anybody?
Good.
Questions?
I didn't get the question. I didn't get the question.
Join
What are you
Global
going
and
to do with all
start
this
packing.
information? You have a lot of information. Kayin and Hevel, different kinds of animals, Smichas Yadayim. Oh, the street is coined with it's kosher with a zar, not a kohen. The Beis Hamikdash joins your heart. Okay, up and above. What are you going to do with all of this? If you can't figure out a way where you're going to take the distance between Hashem's Beis Hamikdash and our presently empty space that could be our Beis Hamikdash, at least on the inside. If you can't narrow that gap, what did you get out of the class? What are you going to do to narrow the gap?
Listen to you every Thursday.
Daven.
Davening is good. What else is good? Think.
Be kind to people. Connect with people.
Connect with people.
Connect
Stop
with Hashem.
judging people by their chitzonius, by their outsides. Find the inside. Find the inside of yourself.
Create more shalom. Create more shalom.
Create more shalom. Also in yourself. Shalom between Hashem.
Train
Okay?
your positive eye and to see the positive and the good in others instead of looking critically at other people.
Yes.
Appreciate your
Try and get other people work. Help others to get their self
Yes, that would be
and
wonderful.
to find Panasa.
That's right.
do more
That's
Promote
using the animal
Tzipporah
stuff
on
because we
social
need to have
media.
work and do something. Good.
do more chesed and look at your gratitudes and your blessings.
Yes. And now that you've said it, you know what the next step is?
Do
it.
Okay. Good night.
Have a beautiful Shabbat. Thank you,
Good
everybody.
Shabbos.
And we look forward
Thank
to
you.
before next Shabbos be together with you in Yerushalayim. I know that Ramon is looking now to put us, but we all hope to be joining you soon.